Well, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are, and welcome to our second webinar for the Angel Tree module, for TSAM's Angel Tree module for the 2024 season. I appreciate you guys carving out some time to learn more here about the applicant process and how we walk someone through the application, as well as just exactly what they see when the applicant walks through. That way, in case you get any questions, you're able to guide them through the process. Welcome back to those of you that were able to join us yesterday for our campaign settings. If you weren't able to be on that webinar yesterday, we do record these. We do circle back, and these will be recorded and made available on our TSAM library. The one from yesterday should be available by the end of today, if not tomorrow morning. And this one that we're working on today will be available no later than Monday for you to review, to circle back in the event that you missed yesterday. So today we are talking about applicants, not angels. I know that sounds strange because maybe in your world those are exactly the same, but the processing of an applicant is a little different than the processing of an angel. A little just kind of business notes here. If you're not familiar with the GoToWebinar interface, you have the ability to raise your hand. You have the ability to ask some questions. That's a really helpful thing as things come up. If you want to be able to ask questions about a given topic, you can go ahead and do that. Put that question in the thread, and the team will go ahead and answer those questions. Those will be made public if it's appropriate, right? If it's not specific to a given campaign, those will be made public so you can follow along. At the very end, we will open it up to questions, and at that point, we'll utilize the raising of the hand feature on the GoToWebinar. But I say all that to say, I see some people raising hands now. We're not going to pause right now for the sake of time. We really took almost every second of the full hour to walk through the campaign settings yesterday, and it's maybe not as robust today as we walk through the applicant, but we do want to make sure we get through all the content, and then we'll be able to answer questions at the end. And so if you have any questions, we will give you the opportunity to unmute and ask those questions at the end of the webinar. This is scheduled for 1 hour, and we will be able to hang out our team to be able to answer some questions after the fact. So go ahead and settle in. Just also a quick reminder, if you weren't here yesterday, the registration process for Angel Tree differs. And so the biggest thing is to go ahead and reach out to TSAM support at dataparadigm.com if you're having any difficulty getting into the Angel Tree module for this year. As one thing I can say is in the Central Territory, if you have questions about when you'll be able to get in the system, when you'll be able to access, you want to reach out to your divisional social service directors. They work in conjunction with territorial headquarters to be able to get that ready to go. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump in. And we're going to first start off with maybe a little bit of where the campaign settings ended yesterday, is when we talked about the ability to schedule appointments. Now, some of us, even though there's an online interface for people to apply, you still want people to come and apply online, in person. But you want to be able to schedule that out. The interface that you would do that for is you would set that up in your campaign settings. And if you don't know how to do that, watch the webinar yesterday, or we can maybe circle back at the end of today. But when you're ready to go ahead and make that public, your applicants will go to a specific website that looks like this. It's very simple. They're simply requesting an appointment, and they are going to put in their zip code. Once they put in their zip code, oh, forgive me, let me go ahead and make sure I'm at the right one. So if I go into my campaign settings here, you can see here that it said that it was off. It is set to open. So let me go ahead and refresh this page. I'll make sure I'm grabbing the right zip code, 33456.
Jeff, you're in the production site. You might want to jump to UAT.
Oh, that was my apologies. So, a quick thank you, Eduardo. He always keeps me straight. we go into, we are doing this training in our testing environment, and I was helping out a location, and I was still in the production environment. And I apologize for that. But now, if you put in the proper zip code in the training environment and move forward, it would look like this. Thank you, Eduardo. That I could have been there for a while trying to figure that out. And you are going to, they will enter in basic information. So I'll simply put, I'll put in that Jeff Marquis. I'll put in my email address. I'll have to confirm that. And then I'll put in my phone number, right? I can put in my phone number. And when I'm ready, this is all they have to do to be able to request an appointment. Now, this is a key clarification. They are not scheduling an appointment. They are not guaranteed an appointment. It's simply a request for an appointment. And as I come back to the website here and I go to my appointment intake requests, I can see the requests that have come through, right? So here's the one I just submitted for Jeff Marquis. I can change the status. Let's say it's maybe this person isn't eligible and so you want to cancel that request, you want to remove it, or it's requested. But when I'm ready to take action, I click this icon here to the right. When I click that icon, it's going to open up a similar interface that you should be familiar with as it relates to distribution appointments. We have predetermined in our campaign settings what times and how many appointments per slot we want to accept. I'll come in and say they're going to come in on Monday afternoon. If there is a referring agency, I can enter that here. Otherwise, when it's ready, I'll simply click schedule, and a reminder email has been sent to me, the applicant. They've said your appointment is scheduled for Monday at 1 o'clock. Additionally, you'll see that they have been removed from this report. It's no longer a request. It is the actual appointments that are in place. So this is the appointment that we have scheduled on their behalf. We can see where it's at and who is the person that scheduled it. Was there a referring agency? When I'm ready to take action, I can come here if I need to delete, if I need to update the information. Maybe they mistyped their email, so they missed the confirmation. You can go here and update that information as needed, including what is their preferred language. Do they need a Spanish speaker to help them with their intake, or is there another alternative? In the same way, and this is actually where we're going to end here with the appointments, is you don't have to request an appointment in order to schedule an appointment. If I want to make a new appointment without having been a request, I come to the intake appointments site page, and I'll click this interface. I can see here, because I scheduled at 1 o'clock, I can schedule another person. And here I just manually enter the information that otherwise would have been submitted. And so it's able to go through and enter that information in there. So that's really the process for utilizing an in-person appointment schedule. I know there's been some questions about that as it relates to this season and utilizing it moving forward. And so if you have any specific questions related to appointments, you can go ahead and we'll circle back to that at the end. But that's how you would schedule an appointment. But now what we're going to do is we're going to walk through what the applicant would experience, or what the intake user would experience. And we're going to do that by simply creating a new applicant. Now, if you're new to Angel Tree, you'll want to know that there's two types of applicants. One of which has a prefix of AA. You can see here AA. Some of them have prefixes of FA. Basically what that means is if I am an FA or family applicant, it means that I have done intake through a person. They went into TSAM, they are doing what we are doing right now. If it is AA, that means that they applied online. That's going to be an easy way for you to be able to differentiate between the two of those. But when I'm ready to process through this application, I'm going to first select a family applicant or a special care applicant. A quick reminder from yesterday, family applicant is our normal intake method. One person, one head of household with a family registering for Angel Tree. Special care applicant is a very similar process, but it's intended for one person to register multiple angels. This would be utilized for maybe a partnership with a nursing home, a partnership with a foster home in some capacity, in which one person is simply registering many people from ultimately different households or different designations, but that is this special care applicant intake. But we're going to walk through the family applicant intake. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my intake location, of which for right now at this point, there's one, the Compton Core. If you have multiple intake locations, you'll select the appropriate one for where you are doing this intake. And this is a very important step because your distribution sites that are going to be available are directly tied to your intake site. So please make sure you don't just grab the first one. That's going to be something you want to clarify with your volunteers and your staff, that they're utilizing the correct intake site at this stage, because you can always update it. It's not a challenging process to update it, but it will cause some hiccups down the line if you grab the wrong intake site. So once I'm ready, I'll click next. When you're applying online, when you're applying in person, one of the features you have is to be able to bring forward past applicants' information. So in this case, if I come here and I type in Jeff Marquis and I run a search, it's going to bring back information. If I had previously been in this campaign, in this case, the Compton Core, if I had previously been a member of the Compton Core, it would be stated at the top. Additionally, I can search here among other divisions. So if I click this expansion, I can see that in the Panama City Core in 2022 and 2023, someone named Jeffrey Marquis has applied. And you would use your conversation, right? You would talk with them to say, is this you? Did you used to live at Red Oak Drive in Louisville, or was it somewhere else? And if that was them, you would click this icon. And all that's doing is it's pre-populating some of the information. You're going to want to verify that this information is correct, obviously, as you walk step by step through the process. But we're not going to do that now, but this is how you would do that. When you're ready to create a new applicant, you click New Applicant here at the bottom of the screen. And if you're familiar with here, all of these configurations have been set by your campaign administrator. If you are joining this webinar and you are not an administrator, you don't have the flexibility to say whether or not questions are asked. You don't have the flexibility to say whether or not questions are required, whether or not they even appear. But in the end, the questions that are here because your campaign administrator, most of us probably on this call, said this question is available. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to register myself. So I'll put in my name, I'll put in my birth date, which is not this, but for speed's sake, I went quickly. I'll choose my options. And I'm going to work through this fairly quickly. I'm hoping that we don't have to spend too much time on each one of these data points. You will see that some data points have this red asterisk, some don't. And that's simply saying this field is required as opposed to not being required. So as you come through here, as we get to this primary and secondary identification, preferred language, I can go ahead and update that as needed. So I'm going to put in my address, and all of this is being provided through the system. What's my phone number? Right? Sorry, forgive me. And then additionally is an email address. Now, in your configuration settings, you may say it's in person. We don't need them to have an email address. I am going to encourage you whenever possible to utilize the email address field. Maybe it's just asked and not required, but what this is going to do, and you're going to see in a little bit, you're going to actually be able to, the applicant will be able to utilize my email address to get my distribution information. One thing that comes up often is cores getting called to say, I can't find my email. What day do I need to come? You need that barcode if you're utilizing the distribution management toolkit. All this information is really helpful for you to have, and you just need to be able to gather back. Now, any person, whether they apply online or via face-to-face through the in-person application, as long as there's an email associated with their account, they can go ahead and be able to access their information. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a dummy email address in here now. Lastly, here is an optional feature for you to be able to, if you have life skill classes that are required in order for participation, that exists here. When I'm ready, I click next. Now, for those of you that did in-person intake in the past, this stage looks new. This is a new screen here. In the years past, we separated the the household members who were not angels from those who were angels. And what that netted out to was often we were having people be duplicated. They were being placed as a household member as well as an angel. And so we've kind of combined those two steps and made it dynamic based on the information that they add. This is the exact process that your online applicants will experience as well. So here, what it's saying, please enter all individuals that reside at this address, regardless of relation to the applicant, right? This is an important component because, and even though it's my brother-in-law, they're not technically a part of my immediate family. If they live in the household, we want to have them listed. So in this case, I'll go ahead and I will enter in the information. And my first person I'm going to enter in, I will say, will be in July of 2021. And what it's saying is that Greg is eligible to be registered for Angel Tree to receive gifts. Do you want to register them? Now, we ask this question because we understand there are scenarios that just because an individual is eligible to be an angel doesn't mean that we necessarily want to register them. Maybe their kids who are 10 to 12 are registering with another agency, and they're only registering their kids who are 10 and under. That may be rare, but we want to give that flexibility. And if I say yes, I then get presented all of my data points for my angel, right? I'll select my gender. I'll select my need. He needs a blanket. He would like a car. He really likes Pixar movies. And I'll go through and I'll set all my different information. It's a toddler. And I'll go through and enter all of this information. Again, the amount of which is required or just asked is based on your configuration settings. When I'm ready, I'll click Save. And it's going to go ahead and add this person here that household members registered to receive gifts. Well, now let's add a spouse. Let's add, we'll add Sheena, and I won't say her birthday. We'll say she also was born. We were born on the same day in 1990. Well, now this person here is not eligible to receive gifts. They're outside the age range as specified by this location, and so it's not given the option. There's nothing to present to them. They simply give the household member non-angel fields, and I'll say this is my wife. If there's identification, and I will save. And as I do that, these two groups of people will begin to be categorized together. I can come back and edit them as I need to. I can come in and delete them as I need to. This is the exact same interface that is on the public online adoption. This should all but remove this issue of duplicates between the household members and angels. When I'm ready, I'll click Next. Here I'm going to bypass this stage just because for the sake of time, but that's if you choose to opt in for the financial components. Additionally, here is where I will choose to upload files. Now, you will understand that in your campaign settings, you put required documents. If I'm doing an in-person application, I may not be actually uploading your birth certificates or your verification information that you brought. I may just be looking at it and confirming. So during an in-person application, there's no documents that are required for submission. On the online interface, it will allow you to specify, we talked about this yesterday in the campaign settings, that if I say I need birth certificates for every angel, if there's 5 angels, I need to have 5 birth certificates uploaded. We talked more about that yesterday, so we'll circle back to the end if there's any questions. But as we move forward, I'm going to go ahead and save and close at this point. Now, at this point, this individual is still in a draft status. Now, this is something that's going to happen regardless of applying online or applying in person, and that is the need to enter in a distribution appointment prior to submission. And so what often happens is this submit button is disabled, and you can see it may be a little small on your screen that all angels require a distribution appointment to be scheduled before they can be submitted. You do that by coming down here to schedule applicant pickup. No appointment's been scheduled. When I'm done, I'll come in the same interface. If this is new to you, this is going to count down, has a little bit of a color code. It's up to you from a business rule if you tell people to always load from the beginning, for lack of a better term, we're going to start, or you're maybe in a conversation with them, finding the right appointment time. But in the end, you are going to select the slot that that person goes in. We'll say it's going to be Tuesday at 10:30. I'll schedule. This person has now been scheduled, and now I'm able to submit. Now, I want to pause here for a brief moment because I want to shift over to the public site to be able to show you what they will experience. To get there, I'm just quickly come to the public Angel Tree site. When they come in, their site looks like this. They go to saangeltree.org. When they scroll down, you have all this information about the Angel Tree program, and they get asked 3 questions as they move forward. The first question is, have I already started an application? If I say yes, I'm simply asked to enter my email address. I don't need my zip code. I don't need any of that information. I'm able to simply enter my email address. If I say no, it's going to ask me one more question. Do you have an invitation code? An invitation code is a way for you to do 2 things. It can restrict access into your campaign. I was just having a conversation with a location earlier today in which they want to have basically like a pre-registration by invitation only before it opens up to the general public. And they are going to use invitation codes. And you have the option in your campaign settings to enforce invitation codes before you are able to proceed. You also can use invitation codes as a way to bypass the max angels that are set. As a part of the online interface, you will set a number of angels that you are willing to accept. Let me clarify, sorry, a number of applicants that you are able to accept. We covered that more yesterday. But if you say, I'm going to take 500 applications, but then after it's closed, you hit your max, you get a special use case in which someone really should be eligible to sign up for Angel Tree, rather than going into your campaign and opening up for 501 and hoping they log in enough time to beat someone else from the public, you can simply give them an invitation code. That invitation code allows them to bypass the max angels when they go to apply and enter in their zip code. But if well, at this point, I don't have an invitation code, and so I'll say no. At this point, it's put in a zip code, right? So if I put in a zip code that's not in the system and click go, they will receive this message. This zip code is not being serviced by your online system. Please contact your local Salvation Army for information on how to apply. This is because anyone in the United States can go to saangeltree.org and put in their zip code. Well, in this case, so that's what gets communicated to them in that fashion. So if I put in a valid zip code, I click go, it brings me to this stage here. At this point, I am going to enter the code for my email address. So I'm going to put an email 23. I don't want to put a real at email.com. So what's going to happen at this point is it's going to send me via email what's called a one-time password. It's a 6-character code that my teammate Eduardo is going to send that to me here shortly. And so he's going to send me that code, and so that it'll allow me to proceed and move forward. And so I'll just give him a second to get that code. This should be delivered within 30 seconds of submission. The amount there, oh, thank you, E48TTE. E48 TTE. So that's my what's called a one-time password. Every time someone wants to access, every time someone wants to resume, this is how they will access the site. At which point I'll click next. And at this point, it's largely the exact same interface that we just did for the in-person application. We're not going to walk through that for the sake of time, but they will go through and they'll enter all their information. They get to step 2 and they'll enter all their household information to be able to determine who's a household non-angel, who's an angel, and they'll walk through this process all the way through to submission. So let's go ahead and jump back to our our detail screen. At this point, we are ready to submit this application. If it's an online applicant, it will look slightly different, only in the sense where we have an AA there. There may be a few more what's called accordions, expandables down here. For instance, I'll show you that here very quickly. If I go to my applicant records here, if I grab this online applicant, Julie Smith, if I scroll down here, you can actually see the disclaimer and consent. If there's ever a question of when did they sign their disclaimer, you can see this information here. But we're going to jump back to Jeff Marquis, and we're going to process this application through. Eduardo, you just let me know. I'm getting a little bit of notice from the webinar as it relates to bandwidth. And so if you can't hear me, by all means, hop in and let me know. Okay, so when we come on, we'll go back into the application, and we need to do a couple things. And this may or may not be all done by one person. This may be done by multiple people. In the end, this item needs to be submitted. It needs to have a supervisor approval and an admin approval. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to submit. All we're doing is putting this into a submitted status. This initial step is only there to ensure that information was gathered correctly. At this point, the individual, can decline or they can approve. Remember, there's two levels of approval: supervisor approval and admin approval. If I want to decline, let me quickly just jump over to the online applicant. Oh, not this one, sorry. If I go over to the online applicant here, Mr. Benny Spears, I can choose to decline them. Now, when I decline, it's going to ask me for a reason, because the applicant is going to receive a message, and the system is going to look for something to be in this place, whether that be you make too much money, or it's outside certain parameters, or maybe you already signed up through another agency. You set the guidelines here for why it's been declined, type in the information, and click Confirm Delete. Additionally, through online applications, you have the ability to do what's called Return to Applicant. Return to Applicant sends the application back to that individual to be able to adjust information. Maybe they missed a household member. Maybe they uploaded the wrong document, or a document was blurry. This sends it back to them to be able to resume their application. You have the ability to copy the link, as well as send the notification automatically to this individual, at which point you'll put in your information explaining what is it that they need to adjust. Maybe their pay stub that they uploaded was out of date and you need a more up-to-date application. So that's how you would return to applicant or decline an application. So let's come back into this application here. So at this point, there's some things I need to do. And this is where we're going to deviate slightly depending on which territory you are in. Just for the moment, we are going to show you the WellSky integration. So if you are from the south or the east, this does not apply to you at this time, but from the central and the west, this process is. This system requires me to have a match in community services before I can mark it as admin approved. To do that, I come in here and I click Start Applicant Match. So what I'm seeing here is the system in that moment is reaching into community services, passing in the first name, date of birth, and last name, and saying, does anybody align with this person? Does anybody overlap? In this case, you can see here that there were no matches found. And so it's important here that we're very diligent with this, because as we say, you're playing with live ammo. Like, you are actively engaging with this third party, in which if you send poor data over, you'll need to adjust that in community services. I can do one of two things. I can create a new client, which I'll do in a second, but I can also refine my search. Let's say you know this person is in community services, but maybe they use a different name, or maybe you just want to be able to go ahead and look up the client ID. In this case, if I grab client ID 25 and search, it's going to bring back an individual, in this case, May Pais, who was born in 2019. If I see a result that comes back because Jeff Marquis overlaps, or if I search and bring back a result. I click select, and this brings me to step 2 of the match process. Because not only do I have to identify the household, but I also need to match each member of the angel tree household with the applicant later. Rosemary, I'm seeing your hands. We're going to circle back at the end. We're not going to pause right now for questions. We will come back to answer questions there at the end. But when I'm ready, I will go through and I can, even though there's technically in this case, because it's a test environment, there's a test, there's someone named May, I can manually tag them to the client IDs down here if I want. I can also manually associate to and then simply create new. So in this case, I would create a new record for Sheena and add them into the household on that side. Well, let's say that we don't want to do that. We simply want to create a new household. When I do that, I'll create a new household. So what this does is this is going to create an applicant record for all individuals in AngelTree and then put them in collectively into one household. So I'll click proceed. It'll go through this depending on the size of the household. This may or may not take some time. See, it went by pretty quick. It created household 42. At this point, what I've done in WellSky, I'm not going to go over that interface, but I've created household 42, and I can come in here and look, and I've created household, right? Not only have I created household, I've also created 3 clients 115, 116, and 117. Well, this match has occurred. We're in place. The other thing that we may or may not do along the way is mark seasonal programs. This is the other part that everyone utilizes, but for some locations it integrates with WellSky. If you are in the south or the east, this allows you to simply mark designations, right? We talked about this yesterday with Santa's breakfast. Maybe you are just simply going in and saying, this family is receiving this service. In the central and the west, you will utilize this to say what service did this person get as it relates to communicating and posting the service at the end of the season. You can see here, we're going to say they get holiday gifts and toys. It's going to grab the default value from your campaign settings. But let's say, well, each one of my bags of toys, they each get 2, that each unit has a value of $25. So I can manually override this default value. Then when it gets posted to WellSky at the end of the season, it'll pass over the correct data. So as we come through, I've entered my seasonal programs. I've done my WellSky match. At this point, I'm ready to move forward with proceeding and processing this applicant. So I'll come up here. I will click supervisor approval. This does nothing in the system other than allow you to have 2 levels of authority. There's FAQs and other videos as it relates to user permissions, but you have the ability to give your volunteers and your employees varying levels of permission that allow them to perform various status changes, whether that be just supervisor approval or admin approval. In this case, I'm going to perform both. Even if you have the top permission, I still need to process through each one of these statuses. You will notice a slight change in 2024, and that is, you can see here that the family code has not been given yet. A slight change to the 2024 season is the family code is now given at admin approval. It actually solves many things that we had in the past, but you'll see now once we shift this to admin approval, it does a couple things. I have the ability to print my application. Some people print them right away and keep them on file. Many locations are going paperless, but this still remains as an option if you want a quick option to print. I can very easily come back and use the print option here in the top corner in the top right. At this point, because this applicant is in an admin approved state, it means that their angels are now able to be allocated. Their angels are now able to be printed. All of those angel components we're going to cover in our next webinar, which is on July 30th on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. So if you haven't registered for that webinar, you'll want to go ahead and do so. Again, that's on Tuesday the 30th at 1 o'clock Central for again a 1 hour call. But as I come through here, I just want to show you a few other components as it relates to applicant processing. For many of us at this stage, we are done as it relates to the applicant, Jeff Marquis. I have processed them. I've got them to admin approved. There's no other changes that I need to make at this point. Everything is complete. But sometimes things arise that require us to adjust. The first of which is I would need to go ahead and change their applicant pickup. Let's say I have my applicant pickup. We've scheduled them for the 16th at 10:30. They contact us. They say, I have to work on the 16th. Do you have any time on the 17th that I can come in? I can do this in one of two ways. I can remove the appointment in its entirety. Now, removing the appointment will remove the family code because for right now, this family code is tied to that, and you may or may not be actually giving them gifts at this point. I can also update their distributions time by simply clicking the edit pencil on the right. When I click that on the right, it will bring me into this location, and I can say they were on Tuesday. I can see right here their time was Tuesday. Well, we're going to change it here to Wednesday, and we're going to simply update their schedule. Nothing has changed. Their applicant code remains the same. All of these things remain consistent. The only thing is now their applicant pickup has been changed to Wednesday at 11 o'clock. I shared with you that the applicant has the ability to see their distribution information. So Eduardo, I'm going to need that code from you one more time here in a second. So I'm just quickly grab this email again, just in case I forgot it. Email 1234. If they go to saangeltree.org and they come down, remember the first question is, have you started an application? Yes, I have. At this point, I'm going to simply put in the same email that, I'm going to put in the same email that I registered with. It's going to give me a verification code. I'll give that just a few seconds here for Eduardo to hand that over to me. The key thing here is this is where at any point someone needs to see information related to distribution, including on the day of, because they lost their paper, they need to look it up. Let me look here. All right. So this will be BSW9. All right. When I simply click next, now what it's doing is it gives them their information. Remember, this is going to be on their phone most likely, but I can see the status. I can see the distribution appointment, the distribution address. Here's my family code here in the top corner to where when it comes to if you are utilizing the distribution management toolkit, they can scan them in to check in. There's never a need for you to have to look up and remind people about their appointments. They will get an automated email one day prior, but some people sign up in September. So by the time, end of November, December rolls around, they need some memory. So it's important here to remind people as they call that they can simply go to saangeltree.org and see all the information related to their distribution. If there was distribution instructions that were placed as a part of the campaign settings, those would also appear here. Something along the lines of enter in the second parking lot and be sure to bring your ID with you. Any type of additional information that's helpful for you as you go through. As I come back, the last thing that I want to go ahead and walk you through is what's called adopt a family. Some locations, we touched on this yesterday, and I'm going to utilize this applicant here, and I'm going to go into my campaign settings, and I'm going to enable adopt a family. Now you can see here right now there is no adopt a family option. If I come into my campaign settings and just oscillate this over, again, this is something that your administrator would do. If I come back and I refresh, now I have this adopt a family button. I'll reiterate this one more time. I said it yesterday. Adopt a family is a very broad term, and this process may or may not align exactly with the way you do adopt a family. If it doesn't, and you want to explore how we can help with that, I had that conversation this morning. We can have that conversation to see how it is. You explain to us your workflow. We'll tell you what, if possible, the the flow could be adjusted for adopt a family. But in the end, what's happening is the Salvation Army, someone has applied, and the Salvation Army representative is marking someone as being an adoptive family. Right here sometimes causes people to have a little bit of a hiccup. If you are a location that allows the requester, the applicant, to choose to be just Angel Tree or an adoptive family, this interface is not currently compatible with that. But let's say as a applicant that I want to mark this Ginny Smith as an adoptive family. I simply come up here to adopt a family, and it gives a little bit of context around what's going to happen. It says that selecting adopt a family was going to put this application into a status of return to applicant. They're doing that because we want to be able to give the applicant the ability to enter in a need and a wish for all of their household members, not just their angels. And so that's what we're being presented with here at this point. It doesn't give them the full range of options that currently are presented to angels, but it does allow you to get some context around the needs and wishes of the household as a whole, as opposed to just those that are eligible for Angel Tree. So if I click yes and I click OK, you'll see a couple things that have happened. I get entered back into a status of return to applicant, but I'm now at this designation of adopt a family. And I'm going to actually do this here. This is something that the applicant would have received a notice that say that they need to go back in and update their application, because now that it's there, at the very bottom, you'll see that there's a need and a wish. We can say, she needs a comforter. I can't spell. And a wish. They would really like an iPod. I don't know if that's an appropriate gift to request for, or maybe they want a mobile listening device. All phones are that nowadays anyways. So I'm going to walk through, and not only have to do it for my applicant, but I also have my household members who are not registered to receive the gifts. In this case, Billy Smith needs to be able to also register their need and wish. So in this case, he needs work boots, size 12, and his wish is a tool belt. I don't know. He'll put in those components, he'll save. And when I'm ready, now this has been updated. And at this point, it's been processed in the same way. It's still adopt a family, but I'm going to work its way back through the same flow. So it's going through another level of supervisor approval, and it's going through another level of admin approval. But what's going to happen is once it gets to admin approved and it's an adoptive family, you want to be able to circulate one document that lists out all the needs of this family. You can do that by coming onto this screen. You can see now there's a new icon on the top. It looks like a little family. And this allows me to print my adoptive family badges. It looks like it's branded with Angel Tree. It contains all of the barcodes that are applicable. Non-Angel household members don't have a barcode, but everyone else does. All of the items that were listed for the Angel will appear here. So if there's a list of 10 things, all of those 10 things will appear for Brian, male, age 9. But Billy, male, age 34, will simply say work boot size 12 and tool belt. You'll be able to see their wants and needs. Additionally, let me back out of this just very quickly. I'm able to mark a donor for this adoptive family as a whole. And I can do that here under the adoptive family information. Here, I'll add a new donor, and I can call this will be Jeff Marquis, just great. And then I'll put the email. I'll update the donor. This will update the donor across all of the associated angels, as well as allow you to come in here and be able to know who to contact as it relates to the adoptive family process. But this, believe it or not, is about the end of the applicant processing. Again, we've talked about the appointment intake feature. We talked about the processing of an angel, that adjustment to step 2 of the application. If you're familiar and you've used Angel Tree for a long time, we're really excited about the way that this could really hopefully cut down on some of the headaches of people being, for lack of a better term, duplicated in the system between household members and angels, as well as the adoptive family. And so we have about 15 minutes left. And so I know there's some people that are raising the hands. And so we'll go ahead and have people.